Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while. Hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Today, we're going over Gambit, who's a pretty new character. And I managed to get him to level 80 quickly, showcasing his performance in PvE and PvP. So, in PvE, for world bosses, he does pretty well. His rotation starts with 2, cancel into 6, delay it for about a half of a second, then follow it up with 4, delay cancel by like a half of a second, then do 3, cancel into 5. 5 is where you want to land. So in this null showcase, he has a CTP of energy at Mighty. I later switch him to a Rage, but this boss is going to be a little slower because I'm showcasing that Gambit is actually proc friendly. As you can see right here with the rotation that I show, he does pretty well, and he cleared this boss in a fair bit of time. I know it's not the highest stage in the world, but you know, he has a lot of maneuverability with his 6 skill. It can be canceled. His skills are very powerful, and he's very fluid. He's very easy to use, even with an energy CTP, which relies on a proc. With Rage, he's even smoother, but the fact that he could rock this efficiently makes him pretty useful. I think that he's gotten a lot of mixed reviews because people don't know really how to categorize him yet. They don't necessarily know if he's a top choice meta or not. But as of right now, he takes bosses on very, very well. And, you know, in this showcase here against Ultron, he cleared him very, very quickly. I changed the CTP to a Rage. The rotation is pretty much the same as I mentioned, but you could be more fluid with it because, you know, energy, you need to get the proc off to get the full damage, whereas Rage, you're going to get the full damage off just so long as you use your skills effectively. For Null World Boss, as you saw, I cleared it in under 2 minutes. Compared to his old uniform, I cleared it in 3 minutes. So it's a huge difference. And switching to Rage, I was able to clear this boss in less than a minute. Say that Rage is probably the best CTP for him. And it's pretty good in other areas of PvE as well, including ABX and ABL. Now, comparing with Cable, Cable is better at fighting bosses. So if you want to see more comparisons with Cable, my friend Theos Santos, he posts on the forum a lot. He gives a lot of good advice, and he shows here all of his boss runs, you know, much higher stages than me, in the amount of clear time that he had, comparisons with Cable. And as you can see, Cable did slightly better. However, when it comes to ABX and ABL, Gambit definitely performs better than Cable. And he does so because Gambit is much more fluid and he's easy to land these skills on and follow up the damage with them. Whereas Cable's damage is much more condensed in a less wide area of effect. So against bosses who stand still, he would do more damage in like a small collective area. Whereas Gambit follows up more with his skills, and his damage is a little bit more continuous and a little bit more harder hitting, especially in ABX and ABL. So the rotation's still the same. You want to make sure that you pop off the 4 before the 3 because the 4's cooldown is longer. So that's why I highly suggest that you do the rotation I mentioned. So 2, 4, 3, 5, like 2, cancel 4, delay cancel 3 into 5. And then when you have the 6th, you use 2, cancel 6. You have to delay cancel the 6 into the 4, delay cancel it into the 3, insta cancel 3 into his 5th. To get roughly the best results for both Cable and Gambit's comparisons, I use Dazzler with Liberation and Mystique with Mighty Insight. I really like Gambit's maneuverability with the V-Pad because in ABL, for example, he can avoid a lot of meteors that reduce your point tally. With Cable, you can't really do that. You have to rely on iframes, and he only has 1 or 2. So while Gambit makes up for less iframes, he makes up for it in damage and in maneuverability with the V-Pad. So here we're coming close to the end of the fight, and he's getting around the same scores as, for example, my Doctor Strange at level 80 with a Rage. He's getting very similar scores to that, which is very good. And from what I'm hearing, he's a better alternative to Psylocke on Blast Mutant Day. So he does have some value if you want to build him, on top of him being a fan favorite, of course. Now, while I have 22% Pierce and I have a Mighty Rage on him, he's not stacked with Odin's Blessings. My swords aren't really that good, and he's not tier 4. But here you could see he does a lot better than Cable by a few 100,000 points. Some say that he does better by up to 1,000,000 points. So there's that. In ABL, it's kind of the same. Like, he's better than Cable by around a few 100,000 points. And because this boss is always moving around all the time, and Gambit is very good at maneuvering with the V-Pad and targeting, he hits the boss longer and more consecutive amount of times. So it's no wonder that he's better than Cable and better than Psylocke. Initially, people thought that because Gambit looks like he has cold damage on one of his skills, that he was going to be working with Judgment, but I highly doubt that he could work with that. Judgment is always going to be worse than Rage in ABX and ABL anyway. So just to clarify, no, you shouldn't put a Judgment on Gambit. To clarify also, I don't have Psylocke built up or her new uniform. I don't have any of that. So the things that I'm going off of saying that Gambit is better than Psylocke is solely off of hearsay. So don't completely take my word for it. Just get some other opinions before making that distinction, because I can't tell you personally through experience that this statement is the case. But I'm hearing it from a lot of top players that Gambit is indeed better in this ABX and ABL day than Psylocke is. What's good about Gambit also is that he has a lot of key stats that stun the boss in ABX ABL. He's got Fracture, he's got Paralysis, he has Burn, he has Snare, and he has Stun. Cable has Burn, but it's massively delayed, so it's actually a lot harder to stun the boss at times. And Cable also doesn't have Fracture. So this is very important in distinguishing who could potentially be better in ABX and ABL just off of that alone. So even though their damage is very, very similar, their effectiveness in their debuffs, the way that they maneuver their skills, the area of effect are just multiple different cases that could make a huge difference, especially in different score outputs. And as you can see, he's doing pretty well for a tier 3 level 80. And because of all the specifications I mentioned, he does way better than Cable overall. In GBR, he clears it pretty well. Not as well as I expected, but I would say like a 2-minute clear is about the average that it would take for a level 80 to clear this boss. And that's relatively fast given that, you know, he's not tier 4. And Cable, like I said, Cable does better against bosses because the damage is a lot more condensed and he's canceling a lot of more skills in a condensed area. Whereas Gambit's kind of using his skills somewhat in different places. So, you know, the 6th skill operates slower than the rest of his skills. His 3rd skill is insta-cancelable, but is shorter. His 4th skill has delay, but it's much longer. And his 5th skill is very, very long and is usually outlasting all of his other skills that are combined with it. Whereas Cable combines almost all of his skills at once. So that's probably why you'd see Cable doing better in bosses. On top of that, Dormammu is pretty stationary. So it's very easy for Cable to get a hit, and so is Gambit. But Gambit's skills are much more spread out. So you'll see the differences between the two, and you'll notice that Cable does do slightly better by maybe 15 to 20 seconds, which is it's a significant difference, but not enough for Gambit to just be like wiped off clear. I think Gambit is still good at taking down bosses, especially compared to his old uniform, which was essentially pretty abysmal. Now we're taking him into timeline battle where he's really bad, but I'm able to execute the 6th skill in various areas because that's the only way that I'm going to get any use out of him in PvP. And I make sure that I don't screw around with the enemies that I face. I make sure that Gambit at least attempts to take down a null, attempts to take down a sentry, things like that. And Gambit can't kill null. That's just facts. But can he get him to 1? Sure he can. And with 1 skill as well. So that's pretty good, but it's not good enough to say that he's good in PvP because he's not. Me having to rely on a 6th skill for any character makes them pretty useless in PvP because in most PvP, you can't just execute a 6th skill like that. You have to wait for it to charge. The only way it's going to charge is if you charge it in timeline battle, making him a dealer, or you last 30 seconds in Otherworld battle or AC, which is nearly impossible. With the help of somebody like Sentry and with the support, I was able to take down pretty much every top 5 meta, which I think is decent, but I need help, like desperately need help. Like Gambit is so fragile that it's very much a kill or be killed situation. So here I have to be extremely careful with what I do. I have to cancel my skills on time before I get one shot. I have to guard myself in some sort of invincibility. He does have invincibility on 5, which is great. It's better than his older uniform. His older uniform, that tactic where I used to kill from distance, that tactic absolutely doesn't work anymore because it not only doesn't do enough damage, but a lot of PvP Toon's skills have very large area of effect. So he's going to get one-tapped even if it's from across the map. At least with this new uniform, he has a lot of debuffing abilities, and he has invincibility, and he has decreased damage received. These PvP stats do not make him good in PvP at all. Still, he needs ignore iframe. So the penetration that he has, even though it can be low because of how high his damage is, it's still relatively useless. So unfortunately, they didn't make him a hybrid, and they missed the mark on him, which is disappointing. But I still think that he's appropriate in the sense where, you know, Gambit has no right to be taking on one-on-one against Silver Surfer, you know, somebody who's super strong in the comics. Sentry, Null, you know, I don't expect him to take on these characters. Even though I am doing it here, but it's only because of one skill that I have to charge. So, while it's entertaining, it's not very wise to rock somebody as fragile as Gambit in PvP. But you're not going to see this kind of PvP content anywhere else, so I'm glad I could showcase it to you guys here. Another thing is that Gambit's 6 skill is so slow. So even his 6 skill, it took me a lot of tries to execute properly. But anyway, that's the end of the Gambit review. I'm showcasing a dispatch playthrough of 14.5. And a lot of people are struggling, so I just wanted to put up my tactic to clear this dispatch. And a lot of people were trying to do the challenges, but me, I just wanted to clear it. So all I did was use Jean Grey and 2 supports, and I was able to take this area down on manual. And she can also clear stage 14.1 with 2 supports on auto, which I will also showcase. And I think the challenge in dispatch is decent, but a lot of people say it's still pretty easy. And, you know, I think it's all right. It's a one-time playthrough, and it gets me resources. Game modes that have resource farming is always good, right? But a lot of people in this game are crying out for more engaging content. Whether it's online where 3 players are fighting a boss together, kind of like in Danger Room, which I miss very much. It needed to be fixed, but it was still a decent game mode. Or people want some form of PvP that's more engaging and less rigged, because people are tired of these like redundant kind of mash 'em up game modes where you just hit as many buttons as you can. You build your cards appropriately so you can just breeze by most content. I think a lot of people are getting sick of that. Hopefully Netmarble changes this kind of, you know, these game modes that they keep adding that are very, you know, just kill as many enemies as you can and beat the boss. It's getting kind of boring, you know, but of course you always want to try and find, you know, tactics for everything. And the quicker you can get through a piece of content in Marvel Future Fight, the better. It's unfortunate that's the way it is, but in these days, that's how it is. And it's interesting because, you know, Jean Grey is coming now towards like a year and a half old with this uniform that she has. And she's still my go-to for most PvE content. GBR, World Boss, Dispatch, Zombie Survival. All of these game modes, Jean Grey still dominates in. And it's good that they could have a character that has very long-term value, because a lot of characters in this game do not have long-term value. Be sure to collect your snowmen so you can get that free brilliant CTP before the time ends. Here I'm showcasing Jean Grey autoing 14-1 dispatch. Keep in mind I'm able to do this because I have as high pierce as I do, which is 22%. But I'm pretty sure that if you use these two supports, Dazzler and Ghost Panther, or similar, and you have probably around 16% pierce, maybe even 13% pierce, because I've seen people who have cleared this with 13% pierce. You can easily clear this, at least on manual play. On auto play, I think you gotta have like 16 to 19% pierce, but you should be able to auto play at least the first stage of 14 dispatch. I've also seen people use two different meta and support. I've used Ghost Rider with Jean Grey to get similar results. I've seen people use even PvP characters like Sentry and Null, because what Sentry and Null do is that they stun the opponents, they stun all these AI, so your heavy damage dealer could kill them all in a condensed kind of like secure area instead of having to try and kill them all in a scattered area. So this is good. You know, there's a lot of different options you could use. Of course, that is if you have the appropriate builds like damage procs or any kind of mini rage proc or a rage proc. So as long as you have these builds, you should be able to clear it. And by the way, if you disagree with anything in the video, whether it's, you know, the teams in dispatch or maybe Gambit's rotation, hit me up in the comments. Like, don't be shy. You know, we can have a discussion about it. If you want to give your tips on Gambit and how to use him, or if you want to give your dispatch tips, don't be afraid to leave a comment and share them. And I'd say also to join Stark Industries. It's a nice, cool place on Discord. You could share your views and ideas. You can also share your ideas on the forums, as many of us are trying to make it a better place. There's a lot of good people. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm showcasing more tips from my friend Theo Santos. I'm giving a shout out to him. I appreciate him allowing me to showcase some of his hard work he shows on the forum, who did a lot of the challenges, if not most of them, and he gives some great tips on what team ups to use to get these challenges and win with them pretty comfortably. So be sure to check that out. I showcase it towards the end of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. I'll be making more PvP guides for the top 7 characters very soon. I'm delaying it because I wanted to get some more AC content. So stay tuned for that, and take care.